I think the Republican primary has gotten very conservative. I think the Democratic primary increasingly, you could call it more liberal or whatever you want to say, however you want to define it. I get people that get mad at me because you guys score me as the most conservative Democrat every year.
Right.
The Laredo paper did a big story on it this year. Raymond graded the most conservative Democrat in the House, and when they called to ask me, for my comment, I said, you know what, these different organizations do their scoring, they can, but I think that if you scored us on common sense, I bet I'd be in the top 5, because I think that's where I go, and I think and wish that more and more people could get themselves to where they would look at things in a more common sense way.
Ready to roll?
Yep.
All right.
Real Texan.
Why should this matter to real Texans? Thanks for joining this conversation with a real Texan talking about things that matter to Texans. I'm sitting down with Richard Raymond, a Democrat member of the Texas House of Representatives. You entered the Texas House in 1993, that 1992 election. You walked into a legislature that, I guess it'd be easy to say looks different than today, but it actually doesn't look that different. It just, the letters next to the names are a little bit different,
Maybe,
the percentages. But it feels like to, a lot of folks that that the Democratic Party certainly, might not look different, but certainly the things that it focuses on has changed. Just kind of the brass tacks. In the 2024 election, 12 of the 14 border counties went for Donald Trump. Historic kind of a change there. Why did that happen? Why did counties that were very reliably, some would say, the Democrats took them for granted and the Republicans figured there was no hope? Why did they move to the Republican column?
Well, I think it's important to look at this, is that certainly Republicans I would say the Republican Party made some gains, but they're not as strong as Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Because I told somebody, some guys were trying to get me to switch parties. I said, well, guys, work with me on this. And this is exactly the way I said it. So I'm going to say it the way I said it. I said, Donald Trump carried Webb County, Laredo, by 50.6%. And then a black congressman from Dallas, who I don't think they've ever been to Webb County, also carried Webb County against an incumbent Hispanic U.S. senator. So work with me on this. I mean, how do you read that? Every other Democrat who ran countywide in Webb County carried the county by 53 to 62%. So
you got 100%.
I got 100. I mean, it's not easy, but I worked hard at it. and so, having said that, I mean, there's certainly it's a big deal that Donald Trump carried all those counties. Part of it is, he's a force of personality. I know this. Let me tell you, I saw a long interview that he did in 2011 when he almost ran in 2012. Almost ran. People forget that. We were in session. We broke early one day. I went to my apartment. I saw this hour-long interview of Donald Trump. I'd never watched him more than little snippets in the news. I came back the next morning. I'm talking to 4 or 5 Republican colleagues, and I said, did you all watch Trump last night on that interview? This is what they said. They said, oh, he's dumb, he's stupid, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, he's a clown, all those things. I'm not making that up. Yeah. And I said, guys, let me tell you something. If he runs, there are 2 things I can tell you. Number 1, he's going to be competitive, and number 2, he's going to be entertaining. Okay? Well, he didn't run. But then 4 years later, when he did run, I mean, what happened at the beginning of his campaign? None of the establishment was for him. All these Republican governors, U.S. senators, including ours, including our governor, including our U.S. senators, they all belittled him. I've never done that. I've never gone after Trump in that way. I just don't believe that that's the way to go. If you're going to disagree with another political opponent, I don't call him a clown. I don't call him an idiot. That's not where to go. So I've never done that, even though he and I disagree on some things. But so he's a force of personality, and that's part of what helped him. Yeah. In addition to that, in the end, the Democratic candidate that we had, in Kamala Harris, clearly didn't connect with South Texas. I would say almost at all, right? Having said that, obviously she didn't get wiped out 60-40 or whatever, but she still lost. Mm-hmm. So I really think a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump, period. The other part has to do that we didn't have a candidate that is connected to South Texas in any meaningful way. And so this is what you get. I think what's happening is that you hear more and more people say this, Michael, I'm going to vote for the person. I've always been, I'm a Democrat and I'm going to support the team. That's a team I'm on during election time. Election's over, then I'm going to work with whoever's here. That goes back to when Bush got elected. I met with him. I said, I wasn't for you, but I said, here I am. I'm giving you my hand. I'll help make you the best governor South Texas has ever known, if that's what you want to be. And we worked together, right? So, it was a lot of it was Donald Trump. And a lot of it was us not having a national candidate on our ticket that connected with South Texas. And I think a lot of it is that more and more people are looking at their smartphones. They're getting information for themselves and saying, I like this candidate and I like this candidate, and less so to do with which party they're in. That's the way I see it.
Gilberto Hinojosa, just before stepping down, resigning as the Democratic Party chair, he had some pretty strong words aimed at the party and its embrace, particularly on, I guess you call them kind of the social issues, the trans ideology and LGBT, the sports stuff. Is there any truth to what? Do you think there's any truth to what he's saying, that maybe the Democratic Party is losing a connection with kind of the historic family, you think particularly South Texas, very family focused mentality, kind of more keeping with East Coast or West Coast kind of, Ivy League kind of values?
Well, I don't think it's quite as exaggerated as my Republican colleagues would like to make it out to be. I do think that when you look at Democrats and Democratic Party, look, we fight hard for the little guy. We fight hard for small businesses. We fight hard to try to get folks better benefits, health care, things like that, where my Republican colleagues haven't been as good on issues of trying to make sure that people have health insurance, as an example. We have fought for that as Democrats. However, there are these issues that get sort of turn into a marquee issue, like the transgender sports issue. When the bill came before us last session in the House of Representatives, it said that if you were born a boy and at some point you transitioned into a girl, didn't say you can't do that. I mean, the bill said you can't compete against girls in sports. Okay, it wasn't a hard one for me. And it wasn't a hard one for most of us in South Texas. Most of the legislators from South Texas voted against that. Other legislators, of course, voted that you could compete, right? Other Democrats, many of the Democrats did. I think that my feeling on it is, if we had a secret vote, a secret ballot on that, there would have been more Democrats that would have voted for a bill that says, if you're a boy, you can't compete against girls, right? But that's not the way it works.
So why do you think that those, there are
some that big
church who are they? What are they scared of? What are they?
It's not any different than the Republican side. There's some things, Michael, that pass on the Republican side that I can tell you, were they to be secret ballots, more Republicans would probably vote against it. So it's a function and part of our primaries, whether it's a Democratic primary or the Republican primary. I think the Republican primary has gotten very conservative. I think the Democratic primary, increasingly, you could call it more liberal, or whatever you want to say, however you want to define it. And so, so I get people that get mad at me because you guys score me as the most conservative Democrat every year, right? And they get mad at me. The Laredo paper did a big story on it this year. Raymond, graded the most conservative Democrat in the House. And when they called to ask me, for my comment, I said, you know what, these different organizations do their scoring, and they can. I said, but I think that if you scored us on common sense, I bet I'd be in the top 5, because I think that's where I go. And I think, and wish that more and more people could get themselves to where they would look at things in a more common sense way. Having said that, again, you have the political realities of the primaries, Michael. That's what you have. And so on your side, there are some Republicans that don't agree with some of the things that they vote for, but that's kind of where they feel a lot of their primary voters go. Similarly, on our side, there are some Democrats that may not agree with some issue that's in front of us, but in their districts, they see people that are really active in their primaries and they feel very strongly about it. So they decide, I better vote this way. And that's the political part of it,
How does the Democratic Party begin to reconnect with, kind of the rural, even suburban families? That it kind of feels like the party is kind of slowly, maybe not so slowly, losing touch with. We've now been 30 years without a Democrat winning statewide in Texas. It's been 30 years or 22 years with Republicans controlling both chambers. It feels like the Democrat Party needs to do something.
Right. Well, I think, and it bothers me because I grew up in a town of 1,800 people, 1,900 people, and I mean not under 1,900. It's now 2,200, so it's growing a little bit. But 1,900, Benavides, Texas, Duval County, right in the heart of South Texas. So my whole experience in the first 6 years in the House, I had 25 towns that I represented, rural towns, and so it hurts me that we don't have as much support out there. So I do think that we have to do more of going out, reaching out to folks, finding out. But I still think things like taxes, property taxes. Michael, I got elected in 1992. I found a press release I did in 1992 talking about the need to lower property taxes. I found it a couple of years ago. I'm looking through some old files, and the first press release that I did after I got elected, before I took office, it said, State Rep-elect Raymond calls for lower property taxes. So I think that we need to focus on the things that everyday folks, face, whether it is property taxes, whether it is health care. Look, there's so many people out there, Michael, that can lose their life savings, and they may not have much life savings, right? I'm going to give you an example. Great kid, didn't work for me. He grew up in Austin. His father left when he was young. His mother died when he was 13 because she got cancer and she didn't have health care coverage. She died of cancer. He has to raise his younger siblings. As soon as he graduated, he went to the Marines. He served honorably for 6 years, served in Afghanistan. He came back. Now he's going to college, and I meet him at a AT&T store where he's working part-time. He strikes up a conversation. To make it short, he ends up working for me for 5 years. I helped him, and then he went on to law school. This is a kid that grew up with nothing. There are a lot of folks out there. I'm sure he wished that his mother would have had access to health care. Maybe she'd still be alive, right? But things like that affect regular folks. And in the rural areas, I can tell you, having grown up there, I grew up in a little town. My grandparents lived in the country, okay? I considered myself a city boy. But for example, healthcare, just having access to hospitals, rural hospitals are dying, Michael. Democrats care about that. We need to step up and I think do more and engage our Republican colleagues to say, we got to make sure we have that healthcare infrastructure. Maybe that's part of how we get folks in those rural areas to say, wait a minute, some of these Democrats, they're not so bad. They may not like all of us, but maybe they like more of us.
Excellent. Richard Raymond, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And thank you for joining this conversation with Real Texans.
Be sure to subscribe to Texas Scorecard on YouTube and click that bell to ensure you're a real Texan. If you liked this video and want to see more citizen-driven journalism, be sure to click like and go to texasscorecard.com to read about all things Texas. Texas Scorecard, real news for real Texans.